in the near term, in particular.
We should be under no illusions.
And how Mark Carney has...
We'll stand together to build Canada.
No headlines, no reminder letters, just a payment that thousands of Canadian children are entitled to, and that far too many never receive, simply because nobody told them it existed. Today we are pulling back the curtain on one of the most overlooked benefits in the entire Canada Pension Plan. If you are raising a child after a loss, or caring for a young person whose parent lives with a disability, what you are about to hear could change the numbers in your household for years. Stay with me, because by the end of this video, you will know exactly what this benefit is, who qualifies, how much it pays in 2026, and the mistakes that quietly cost families thousands of dollars. Let's start with the number that surprises almost everyone. In 2026, the Canada Pension Plan Children's Benefit pays $307.81 per month. That is per child, every single month, and it is a flat rate. It does not matter whether the family lives in a big city or a small town. It does not shrink because you own a home or grow because you rent. It is the same clean figure for every eligible child across the country. $307.81. Now pause for a second and think about what that adds up to over a year. That is close to $3,700 annually for one child. And if there is more than one eligible child in the family, that amount is paid for each of them. 2 children could mean over $7,000 a year flowing into a household that may be going through one of the hardest chapters of its life. So what exactly is this benefit, and why does it exist? The Canada Pension Plan Children's Benefit is a monthly payment designed to support the dependent children of contributors who have either passed away or who live with a severe and prolonged disability. Think about the logic behind it. When someone works in Canada and pays into the Canada Pension Plan through their paychecks, they are not only building a retirement pension for themselves, they are also building a safety net that reaches beyond their own retirement. If that person becomes disabled and can no longer work, or if that person dies before their children are grown, the Canada Pension Plan steps in to help cushion the financial blow for the kids left behind. This benefit is that cushion. It is the plan quietly keeping a promise that a parent's years of contributions will continue to look after their children, even when the parent no longer can. Now here is where it gets interesting, and where the details really start to matter for your family. There are 2 versions of this benefit tied to 2 different situations. The first is the survivor side. If a parent who contributed enough to the Canada Pension Plan passes away, their dependent children can receive the children's benefit. The second is the disability side. If a parent is receiving a Canada Pension Plan disability benefit, their dependent children can also receive a children's benefit while that parent is alive but unable to work. Same benefit, same monthly amount, but triggered by 2 very different life events. And this is one of the reasons the benefit gets missed so often. Families dealing with a new disability diagnosis are focused on the parent's own disability payment, and they simply do not realize there is a separate payment available for the children on top of it. Let me make the eligibility crystal clear, because this is where money is won or lost. To qualify, a child must be the natural child or the legally adopted child of the contributor, or a child in the care and control of the contributor. And there is an age rule that everyone needs to understand. A child under the age of 18 can receive the full benefit. That is the simplest case. If the child is under 18, the age condition is met, full stop. But the benefit does not necessarily end the moment a young person turns 18. This is the part that catches families off guard, and it is the part that can mean the difference between stopping the payments too early and keeping them going for years longer. Here is the rule that so many people get wrong. Between the ages of 18 and 25, a young person can continue to receive this benefit, but only if they are attending a recognized school or university.
Of Canada and the Bank of England, it was part of my duties to make regular public reports on what we were doing to manage the economy. And I remember during the financial crisis, when there was a real risk of...
In other words, once your child turns 18, the benefit does not automatically continue just because they are still your child. It continues because they are still a student. And that single word, student, unlocks a whole set of details that you need to get right. Because whether that young adult is studying full-time or part-time changes the amount of money that arrives every month. Let's talk about that difference because it is significant. For a full-time student between 18 and 25, the benefit stays at the full rate. That is the same $307.81 per month in 2026. So a 19-year-old enrolled full-time at college or university keeps receiving the same amount they were getting as a younger child. Nothing is lost simply because they crossed the line into adulthood, as long as they stay enrolled full-time. But now watch what happens if that same young person switches to part-time studies. For a part-time student, the monthly amount is cut roughly in half. In 2026, a part-time student receives $153.91 per month. That is still real money, still worth having, but it is a meaningful drop from the full rate. And this is exactly the kind of detail that families discover only after the fact, when the deposit suddenly changes and nobody explained why. So let me put those two figures side by side so they stick with you. A full-time student, $307.81 a month. A part-time student, $153.91 a month. The gap between those two amounts is not small. Over the course of a school year, choosing or being forced into part-time enrollment instead of full-time can mean roughly $1,800 less across the year. That is not a reason to push a young person into a course
effort that can accomplish much more than any of us can do alone. In times of global peace and security, we've often taken such cooperation
load they cannot handle. But it is absolutely a reason to plan carefully, to understand the consequences, and to make sure that if a full-time schedule is realistic, the paperwork properly reflects it. Because the payment follows the student status, and the student status has to be documented and confirmed. Now you might be wondering, what actually counts as a recognized school? This is a fair question because young people today study in all kinds of ways. The benefit is generally tied to attendance at a recognized educational institution, which includes universities, colleges, and other approved schools and training programs. The key idea is that the young person is genuinely enrolled and pursuing their education, not simply signed up in name only. And because student status has to be verified, the young adult usually has to confirm that they are attending school.
pour les millions de personnes qui ont du mal à joindre les deux bouts. S'attaquer au défi de coût de la vie, c'est aussi mettre.
This is not a one-time thing. As long as the young person is between 18 and 25 and relying on their student status to keep the benefit, that status needs to be kept current with Service Canada. If the enrollment lapses, or if the confirmation is not provided, the payments can stop. So the practical lesson here is simple but powerful. Keep your enrollment confirmed, keep your paperwork current, and never assume the benefit will just keep flowing on its own once your child becomes an adult. There is one more age fact that draws a hard line in the sand, and you need to hear it clearly. Once the young person turns 25, the benefit ends. Full stop. It does not matter if they are still in school. It does not matter if they are pursuing a second degree or a longer program. At age 25, this particular benefit is no longer payable. So think of the window like this. From birth to 18, the benefit is available based on being a dependent child. From 18 to 25, it is available based on being a student. And at 25, the door closes. Knowing that timeline lets you plan ahead, especially for families with a young person who started their studies a little later or took time off along the way. Let's step back for a moment and talk about why this benefit is overlooked so consistently. Because understanding the reasons will help you avoid becoming another family that misses out. The first reason is grief and stress. When a parent passes away, the surviving family is dealing with funeral arrangements, emotional pain, and 100 urgent decisions. Government benefits are rarely the first thing on anyone's mind. The second reason is that the children's benefit lives in the shadow of larger, better-known payments. People know about the survivor's pension for a spouse. People know about the one-time death benefit. But the separate monthly payment for the children often gets lost in the shuffle. The third reason is the disability side. When a parent is approved for disability benefits, they are often so relieved to have their own payment sorted out that they do not realize there is an additional benefit sitting there for their children. And the fourth reason is time. Life moves on. A child who is too young to receive the benefit at the moment of a parent's death might become eligible, or the family might only later realize the benefit was available all along. That brings us to a question that could genuinely put money back in your pocket: retroactive payments. If a family discovers this benefit late, all is not necessarily lost. The Canada Pension Plan does allow for retroactive payments in certain circumstances, meaning payments that reach back to cover a period before the application was made. This is one of the strongest reasons to apply as soon as you learn you might qualify, and to apply even if you think you may have missed the window. The system is built to look back to some degree, so a delay does not automatically erase your entitlement. But every month you wait to apply is a month closer to the edges of what can be recovered. So if there is one action item you take away from this video, let it be this. If you think a child in your family might qualify, do not sit on it. Start the process. Now let's talk about how you actually apply, because knowing the benefit exists is only half the battle. The application is generally handled through Service Canada. In many cases, the parent or guardian applies on behalf of the child, especially when the child is younger.
Reinforced and built to last. That was the conviction behind our announcement just last week in Halifax to procure up to 12 submarines.
When the young person is an adult student between 18 and 25, that young adult is typically the one confirming their own status and managing their own side of the application. You can apply online by signing into your My Service Canada account and completing the appropriate application form, or you can apply using a paper application. For families dealing with a death, the children's benefit is often part of the same broader application process that covers the survivor's pension, so it can be handled together rather than as a completely separate errand. And that is a small mercy, because it means one coordinated effort can secure multiple benefits at once. Let me give you a practical picture of how this plays out in a real household, because numbers on their own can feel abstract. Picture a family with two children, ages 10 and 15, whose father contributed to the Canada Pension Plan for many years before passing away. Both children qualify for the children's benefit. That is $307.81 for each of them every month. Together, that is over $615 a month flowing into the household, more than $7,000 a year, at exactly the moment when that family needs stability the most. Now fast forward. The 15-year-old turns 18 and enrolls full-time in college. The benefit continues at the full rate because full-time student status keeps it flowing. A couple of years later, that same young adult reduces to part-time studies to take on a job. The benefit does not disappear, but it drops to $153.91 a month. And eventually, when that young person turns 25, their portion ends entirely. Meanwhile, the younger sibling continues through their own timeline. You can see how, across a decade, this single overlooked benefit can deliver tens of thousands of dollars to a family, but only if they know to claim it and keep the paperwork current at every stage. Here are the practical tips that separate the families who maximize this benefit from the ones who leave money on the table. First, apply early, and apply even if you are unsure. It is far better to apply and be told you do not qualify than to assume you do not qualify and miss out on years of payments. Second, understand the age transitions before they happen. Mark the moment your child turns 18 and have a plan for confirming their student status if they continue their education. Do not let the payments lapse in the gap between childhood and adulthood. Third, be honest and precise about full-time versus part-time status, because that distinction directly controls the amount. If your young adult is genuinely a full-time student, make sure that is properly documented so they receive the full rate rather than the reduced one. Fourth, keep your contact information and enrollment confirmations current with Service Canada, because the benefit relies on up-to-date verification, especially for students. And fifth, remember the hard ceiling at 25. Plan your family's finances, knowing that this specific stream of support has an end date. Let me also clear up a point of confusion that trips people up. This benefit is completely separate from the Canada Child Benefit that most families are familiar with. The Canada Child Benefit is a tax-free monthly payment based on family income, and almost every family with young children receives some version of it. The Canada Pension Plan Children's Benefit is a different animal entirely. It is not based on your family income. It is not reduced because you earn a good salary. It is tied specifically to a parent's contributions to the Canada Pension Plan, combined with that parent's death or disability. So a family could be receiving the Canada Child Benefit and still be entitled to this additional children's benefit on top of it, without one affecting the other. Do not let the fact that you already receive one child payment fool you into thinking you are getting everything you are owed. These are two separate benefits, from two separate systems, for two separate reasons. One more important note, and this one is about geography. If you live in Quebec, the rules work a little differently. Quebec runs its own version of this system through the Quebec Pension Plan, rather than the Canada Pension Plan. So if your family is in Quebec, the concept is similar, a monthly benefit to support the children of a deceased or disabled contributor, but the program and the specific figures are administered separately. For everyone outside Quebec, the Canada Pension Plan figures we have talked about today are the ones that apply. It is a small distinction, but it matters, because applying to the right program is the difference between a smooth approval and a frustrating delay. So let's bring it all together. The Canada Pension Plan Children's Benefit is a monthly payment for the dependent children of contributors who have died or who live with a severe and prolonged disability. In 2026, it pays $307.81 per month for children under 18, and the same full amount for full-time students between 18 and 25. For part-time students in that same age range, it pays $153.91 per month. The benefit ends at age 25. It is a flat rate. It is not reduced by your income, and it is separate from every other child payment you might already be getting. And most importantly, it is a benefit that far too many eligible families simply never claim. Think about that for a moment. Somewhere out there right now, there are children entitled to thousands of dollars a year in support that their families have never applied for, not because they did not qualify, but because nobody ever told them. That is the real tragedy of an overlooked benefit. It is not that the money does not exist. It is that it exists and goes unclaimed. So if anything you heard today made you think of your own family or a friend or a neighbor raising children after a loss, do not keep it to yourself. Share what you learned. Encourage them to check their eligibility and to apply through Service Canada. A single conversation could be worth $307.81 a month to a child who needs it. If this video helped you understand a benefit you did not know existed, take a second to like it and subscribe, because we break down these overlooked Canada Pension Plan and old age security payments in plain language every week. The next one you watch might just uncover another payment your family has been missing. Thank you for watching, and take care of each other.